Welcome everyone to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. We are coming straight off of the heels of an incredible SummerSlam event. It had so many surprises and so many big moments, and we're going to be going through each and every one of them. We're going to break down each and every one of the matches as well in detail. It was an incredible show, and I really can't wait to talk about it. So let us know in the comments what you thought of tonight's events, and we'll be back right after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, yeah. So welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. As I say, it has been a big night in WWE because so much happened at SummerSlam, more than I expected to happen. Now, while most of the things that did happen were kind of predicted, I'm still impressed with how much they managed to put off in one night. Really exciting show. Sludge Sports with us again. Hello. And did he sleep during the show? Because I did. Then I woke back up. No, it was, look, I was fully awake for it myself. It was an incredible show. Really enjoyed it. Again, so much to get into. The big story, of course, coming out of the show will be the return of Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the OTC, as he seems to be referred to now, the original tribal chief. I thought it might be one true chief, but original tribal chief kind of makes sense. Man, really excited to see him back. And again, it's not the only surprise we got. It's not the only big story we have to talk about. Sludge, you missed one match. What was the one you missed? Because they were all pretty good in my opinion. We had some really good moments throughout the night. From everything from what ended up being the main event with Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes, where of course we had this Bloodline Rules mayhem. As you would expect, there was a lot going on at the end of the show, but it really did open itself up for an incredible return of the original tribal chief, Mr. Roman Reigns. A really exciting show and a really exciting way to end the show as well. Again, let us know in the comments what you thought of it. Bayley and Nia was the one you missed. Look, that was the one that a lot of us thought might be, pardon the term, but the sleeper match anyway. But I was actually impressed with what they did. I enjoyed what they did. I enjoyed seeing Nia come out on top again. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on that one, but for me, I even like the way they teased the Tiffany Stratton cash in, where she can now say, look, I wasn't actually gonna do it, it was all for you. Like, they celebrated together, but obviously the seeds are sown now for that potential turn on Nia as well. Talking to turns, my goodness, we started strong, didn't we? We started out with a huge turn in the match between Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. And again, it's one that we kind of maybe saw coming. There was always this kind of feeling that something was going to happen with the Judgment Day, whether it was going to be Finn turning here, Finn turning later, which, spoiler alert, does happen, or Dominik Mysterio doing something here, which is the one I was going for. And yes, Dominik Mysterio does turn on Mami, and it was all a big old swerve from what we saw just a few days ago, where the love was confessed essentially for Rhea Ripley by Dominik. He basically said, Rhea, you're for me. Liv, get out of my life. And it didn't really seem to be genuine. Before we started the show, before we started the matches, we started off with the Jelly Roll intro. He had a bit of a part to play on the event. I thought that was pretty good and pretty well done later on with the Awesome Truth as well. But going back into the matches themselves, that moment where Rhea Ripley looks like she's dislocated her shoulder again. Now, I'm not really sure what that was. I remember times where Alexa could do certain things with her arms, I feel, if I recall correctly, that made it look like she was injured, and they kind of played into that. I feel like Rhea's either just discovered this since the injury or that was legit. I don't know. But the way what a visual, her slamming it into the announce table to bring it back. Now, she did it again later on as well against the turnbuckle, which I thought did dampen the original one, if I'm honest, a little bit. But still an incredible match between these two. So much drama, as you would expect. A lot of, and this is a theme throughout this whole show, a lot of near falls that maybe overdid it a little bit, if I'm honest. But still, I'm all about the drama and I enjoyed it. So we had Dom distracting the referee. And because of that, Liv Morgan did win. And I felt like, hold on, this is a bit weak in a turn, right? Yeah, I know it's a little different when you've got a man turning on woman. Did they just straight up hit the woman? That's a bit of a touchy situation, right? So it is a tricky thing to pull off, but on reflection, I think they actually did it quite well, because I was a bit disappointed at first when he didn't, like, we had the moment when he kissed Liv, right? That was the reveal that he'd fully turned, but I thought it was a bit sloppy in some ways because he clearly helped. They said it was deja vu, Cole said in commentary, of the time when he accidentally helped Liv win against Becky, which obviously we knew this was coming, but I just felt like, yeah, it is kind of deja vu, and that's not a good thing until the kiss. But then there's that awkward bit in between where Dom starts smiling, and it's like at that stage we shouldn't have seen the reveal because it wasn't big enough. It should have been that kiss. And I felt like Dom smiling before the kiss kind of didn't help that. But look, I don't want to take anything away from him because it was a great moment, a great match, and yeah, really enjoyable. Sludge thinks Rhea and Jay versus Dom and Liv at Bash Berlin. Yeah, we were talking about it on the build-up show, weren't we, earlier on? And it does seem like that is possible now. And Priest going back as a babyface, like his Bad Bunny area. Priest definitely feels like he is fully on the babyface train now, as does, of course, Rhea Ripley as well. But guys, let me know, what did you think of this this match here and the rest of the ones throughout the show? This was an incredible turn, as I say. Like, it's something we expected, but still, it was good to finally get it, because now I'm excited to see where we go. Dominik is, if he couldn't be more of a heel before, I don't know, now I don't know what more he could do. Just every step of the way, just becoming this detestable character. So yeah, really cool to see in that sense as well. Next up, we had Damian Priest going mad at the Judgment Day backstage, trying to figure out what had gone on. Nobody seemed to own up to it. And obviously we would see this is more seeds being sown for later on in the show as well. We had next the Intercontinental title match as well. Another one where we saw something of note take place. And this was with the title changing hands, of course, Bron Breakker becoming the new champion. Now, my big concern was this match and the US title match, in my opinion, both needing the change of championship owner. And I didn't think we'd get both. And this will be a theme as we go throughout the night, guys. I'm surprised how much they delivered on. And some of it's obvious stuff, don't get me wrong. Like stuff that felt like, oh, yeah, this is what they should do. But the fact they did all of them, in my opinion, is amazing. And again, we'll touch on that as we go throughout the card. But for me, again, an enjoyable match. Not too long, this one. Quick but effective. And a quick but effective win from Bron Breakker as well. I saw a great clip of his dad and his uncle, the Steiners, of course, in the Legends box, as I think they dubbed it later on in the show. But there was a social media clip going around of them celebrating, essentially, which was quite nice to see. That beautiful fast spear. And that was it. That was all she wrote for Sami Zayn's title run. And it's been a decent run. Again, a few of us have mentioned on the channel, we don't think he should have had this in the first place. I'm not saying he's bad or anything. He should have been in the world title picture, in my opinion. But I think at least we've done a good job at getting this to where it needs to be now, which is someone like Bron Breakker. So yeah, I'm happy by all accounts here as well. We also saw Shane McMahon. No, that was somewhere else, wasn't it? That was meeting someone else for another company. We saw Stephanie McMahon in the audience at this moment as well. So that was quite an interesting note. After that, speaking of special guests, we saw Machine Gun Kelly come out with Logan Paul. And he would play a role, of course, in the next match. He would give Logan Paul the brass knuckles, and it would work against them eventually, because finally LA Knight comes out of a match with a championship, and it looked good as he held it up, right? It looked right. And there's a picture already of him and Triple H backstage posing, that typical thing of Triple H posing with a newly crowned champ. Really happy to see it. You know, I won't go into it too much here because we've talked about it time and time again, but this is a feud that was a long time coming. But not only that, it was a victory that was a long time coming. I think LA Knight is deserving of this title, and I really hope that this is a nice little stepping stone for him, because there was a real risk that that we'd lose serious momentum with someone who had gained a serious amount of momentum in the first place. So really good to see LA Knight come out on top with this one. Slow says this match was better than Sami and Gunther, in my opinion. Sami and Gunther, yeah, that was a good match at WrestleMania, but yeah, okay, fair enough. This one was, I think it was shorter. I imagine it was shorter. It should have gone like 25 minutes. Bron Breakker will lose it to Sheamus at Mania. That's quite the call there. Yeah, because Sheamus, of course, still never won the IC title. It'd be a real shame if he does retire without that accolade. So, of course, a few years ago at Clash at the Castle, when we were covering it here in the UK, we were over in Cardiff, and I really thought then that Sheamus was going to win it, and he didn't. You know the deal's back with us. Thank you, buddy, for joining us again. Really solid this SummerSlam overall. Super predictable finishes. I think it's official. Gunther is the best in-ring talent in WWE. Look, some great points there. It was super predictable in some ways, but that's okay, right? You know, I'm sure you're happy with it as much as I am, because we saw some great things, and sometimes that's okay. What isn't as predictable as is, if this makes sense, is just how many of those kind of things they committed to. I'm really surprised they gave us every single one of the kind of predicted things, because they're usually crazy predictions that we're going to get disappointed by when they don't all happen, or like one or two maybe does. And I was saying, I was fearful coming onto this stream and being like, oh, nothing happened. You know, like, what if we'd kind of talked ourselves into it? But thankfully, so much happened. As you know, the deal says as well, Gunther, what an incredible in-ring talent. We'll get to his match in just a moment. But yeah, I completely agree. I've got some thoughts. I'll hold off until we get there. But yeah, we'll be jumping to Gunther in a while as well. Let's move on to actually no. Let's stick a little bit more on this Logan Paul LA Knight match as well, because I do think there were some really cool spots in this. LA Knight, first of all, just because it seemed out of character for him, but hopping up to that top rope and kind of jumping off of it. He does another one where he hops up and hits the superplex, which was very risky because it was more like a brain buster in the end. Logan doing that insanely fast springboard in between these two as well. And as I mentioned earlier on, Machine Gun Kelly handing over the brass knuckles, and it essentially not working out this time until you got a fantastic segment where you had a bugshot lariat. Actually, that's not what Logan calls it, is it? But you know what I'm talking about. Into the BFT for a win for LA Knight to pick up his first championship in the WWE, barring I guess the what's it called, the $1 million championship. But if we don't count that, then yeah, this is the first as far as I'm aware. Next up, we had Bayley versus Nia Jax. Now, this is the one, as I mentioned earlier on, that people thought might be the kind of sleeper, and that's nothing against either two of these people. I think, look, I'm happy Nia's won, so I'm not in the I hate Nia camp. Sorry for anyone tuning in that is. I know there's a few of you out there. I do think there have been problems in the past with Nia Jax, but I think since she's come back, she's been quite good. And I think storyline kind of needs this. You know, it needs to go in this direction. Bayley, speaking of story, she was a bit more dressed up like the old Bayley, right? The Hugger Bayley. So that was quite cool to see. But yeah, not a bad match at all. We had Nia being thrown off of Bayley when she tried to do her pin after the Annihilator. Bayley hit that powerbomb on Nia, which was a great moment as well. Tiffany failed the cash in, but as I mentioned at the top of the show, I think that might be twisted by Tiffany to be like, no, it's just a distraction. Once Nia relaxes, the dust has settled, she's probably going to start side-eyeing Tiffany and saying, hold on a minute, didn't you try and cash in and ruin my moment? So quite clever that they got something to play into there. Nia hits a very good-looking jackknife, in my opinion. 2 annihilators, gets the pin, and there we go. The Queen of the Ring becomes women's champion as well. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with what I saw with this one. Moving into the next match, we had the match that many of us thought might even main event, which was wild to say when you've got 2 world title matches. And I actually like the way they organize these world title matches, which we'll get to in just a moment. But before that, we did have CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre with, of course, Seth Rollins as the referee. Now, my big concern was Seth getting involved would be an obvious thing, and that this would lead to a triple threat. And as much as it feels like that is probably the case, I felt like they executed it pretty well on the night. My big complaint was that I felt like Drew and Punk should breathe for a bit before it becomes a triple threat. But hey, I guess when you're injured, it's hard to kind of do things like that. You kind of need to just get on with it when you can. So yeah, a fantastic showing from all 3 guys here, including the referee, which seems a weird thing to say. Punk, of course, coming out in a Brett gear. There is a lot of parallels between the SummerSlam match where Shawn was the special guest referee. I believe it was 96 when you had Undertaker. Was it Undertaker, Brett, and let's have a look. 97. There we go. Undertaker, Brett, 97, and yeah, again, some parallels there. Of course, you had Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee that time. This time round, you've got Seth freaking Rollins. Slightly different attire for the 2 of them as well, but still, again, a lot of parallels between this. So you had the gear from CM Punk, and some of the moments throughout this definitely paid homage to that match back in 1997. Funny thing to start the match, we had Punk throwing his jacket at Seth, who wiped his butt with it. Drew convincing Seth to ignore the chair, which I thought was very funny. Eventually, it would go into basically a no DQ in some ways. You also had the bit where Seth tried to be noble and catch the chair as Punk was being swung out essentially by Drew anyway. And then, of course, all the bracelet stuff came into it, which I like. Don't get me wrong. And I think that ended up being the downfall of Punk in this match. You had Punk, first of all, going for the Anaconda Vice, finally locking it in, and then breaking it because he's distracted by the bracelet. Then you had a kick out from the Claymore, which was cool. But again, we had a lot of these kick outs on this show, which was maybe a bit too much at the end. Punk distracted again by the bracelet because he sees Seth Rollins wearing it, which was a nice little touch. And Seth's trying to just basically say, look, man, I just picked it up. Like instead of putting it in my pocket, I guess put it on my wrist to keep it safe. And Punk goes mad. Eventually would hit GTS on not only Drew and missed the count, but he'd also hit the GTS on Seth Rollins himself. Eventually be hit with a low blow, hit with a Claymore, hit with a 1, 2, 3, and a bracelet was taken away from him anyway. Really good match for this one here. It did exactly what it needed to do. It was all about the storytelling. And again, I really did enjoy this one. Looking forward to see where they do go with it again. Whether it becomes a triple threat straight away, I don't know. But yeah, overall, a good performance from these guys. And again, somewhat predictable. We knew, of course, Brett. I was going to say Brett. I'm really getting confused there with that SummerSlam 97 match, but really predictable in some ways because we knew Seth was going to get involved. But hey, that's always going to happen in these kind of matches, right? Let's move on to the next one. We get the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, this is one of my favorites from the night. I thought the storytelling in this one was fantastic. And my only kind of criticism is that someone like Gunther getting their first big world title victory, and so much of the camera being focused on someone else, aka Finn Balor outside the ring, was not great. That part of it. If we move away from looking at this historical thing in 10 years' time, trying to show on a DVD, what am I talking about? That ain't going to be a thing. Of Gunther, it's not really a thing now, is it? Gunther winning his first gold on that level, and it keep panning to someone else. I think it's not a good look. But within the moment, within the storyline of what's actually going on today, fantastic. It was a great match. And as I said a few days ago and on the build-up show, I do think that Damian Priest has a point that he feels he wants to prove. And because of that, we keep getting banger after banger, to choose a Sheamus phrase. A very hard-hitting title match. You had that huge Falcon Arrow, and he threw Gunther really far when he hit it. Gunther's chest gets busted open from chops early on. When have you seen that before, guys? Absolutely incredible. Disappointingly, the crowd were distracted by something in this. I'm not sure where it is. I tried to look it up online, but the crowd did seem quite distracted in this. And I do feel like it was a shame because, as I say, I think both guys performed very well. Gunther kicked out of a giant chokeslam. Finn would come down to act as support. And what do you know? He puts Gunther's leg on the rope. And this, again, was kind of like the other Judgment Day turn, where you've kind of got not this massive moment of the person hitting the other person to make it clear, but still what he did was enough to make it obvious. And then that camera shot of Finn just facing the opposite way from the ring and just looking very smug and pleased with himself indeed. Fantastic. Now, talking to camera work, man, it got better. Production was fantastic in this match. You got Priest getting pulled into a sleeper by Gunther, but he gets out of it and he crawls back over. I say crawls, he starts and he darts and he dives and he grabs a hold of Finn Balor, and his face is kind of one of pure hatred and just kind of, I don't know, just a psychotic look on his face. And I was like, this is like a horror movie. Like the way he grabbed Finn was so quick and manic. It was incredible. And then, of course, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Gunther pulls him back into the same move again and picks up the win. And yeah, I think the best way to go about it was the way they did with Damian Priest passing out. It was an incredible ending. The only thing I would say is, again, for it to be Gunther's first world title reign is a little bit of a concern. Well, I don't know if concern is the right word. Maybe disappointment, just because I'd like to have seen Gunther just be dominant because he is dominant, not because he technically got help from someone else. But at least it wasn't like someone hit Priest with a chair and he pinned. It was basically Gunther got away with it. Gunther was helped in the sense that he had his foot on the rope. But at the same time, you know, it was Gunther's, I guess, hard work and taking advantage of the distraction that Damian had, you know. So still a fantastic ending, a fantastic match. And man, at this point of the show, I was just thinking, man, I can't believe they're giving us everything we kind of predicted. But again, not that that's a bad thing. Everything we predicted, because it was something that we all kind of naturally saw going in the storyline. And I think that's a great point as well. Like, this is a story that's been bubbling under the surface for ages. This time last year, we mentioned it on the build-up show, Damian Priest was toying around with cashing in while Finn was going after Seth. At Money in the Bank, we had the same situation as well. So I love the fact that they've sowed these seeds on so many of these storylines. We talked about on the build-up show, all the stuff between Finn and Liv, or was it Dom and Liv? I think it's been so cool. And again, we're going to see more of that coming forward in the next few weeks, I'm sure. Then we got Awesome Truth and Jelly Roll once again with A-Town Down Under. A nice little five-knuckle shuffle between the three of them. Cool little segment there. And finally, we move into what was the main event. And again, I was kind of surprised this was the main event, even though that sounds wild to say. It's the world type, well, the WWE Undisputed title, I should say, Cody Rhodes and a Bloodline storyline. And that's a recipe for main event for the past, you know, few years. But still, this match didn't feel like, and I'll be honest, it continued to feel this way until everything kicked off, like it should be in the main event, because we've seen it before. And, you know, to borrow a kind of phrase from Lucas earlier in the week, but Solo just isn't that guy, I think he said. At the moment, it's just not been working. And I said earlier, I don't know where it is, but anyway, he played his role here, and I've got to give him credit. We had a nice little build to the match kind of getting underway with Cody being backstage with Pharaoh. I was very confused when it showed Cody from his tour bus, but he comes out, picks up Pharaoh, meets Arn Anderson, and yeah, obviously, if you're a wrestling fan who's paid attention to their history, then you'll know while that was significant, especially their time in AEW and the famous promo. Then he comes out with that huge mask, and at this point, I started to think, "Oh, this is a bit like WrestleMania." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I've called in some favors, and you know what I'm talking about, but some you know who they are," which is alluding to some maybe you don't know. There'll be a surprise, yeah. Then he came out again with that mask, a little bit different because you don't have his wife there to take it off of him, Brandy Rhodes, of course. But it still felt very much like WrestleMania. And I think a lot of this show did in some ways, because if you took the branding away and it looked like a WrestleMania show. It was a big stadium, 50, I think they said 57,000, even though Arn said 54 straight after. But either way, in the 50s, and an incredible attendance, and it looked fantastic as a show. Great production. I'm loving the fact that SummerSlam has really become, the WrestleMania of the summer. WrestleMania is always WrestleMania, don't get me wrong, but hey, if we can make the other shows bigger as well, then rising tides raises all ships and all that good stuff. So anyway, let's get back to the match at hand. Look, as much as I'm praising the intro, it started to be the usual stuff. That is literally the note I made. Then you get the Gorillas of Destiny come out, and they start beating on Cody Rhodes. Solo gets the 2, but then KO's music hits. He comes out, tries to even it. Randy Orton's music hits. He comes out, tries to even it. And again, it just felt like they were trying to recapture that WrestleMania spirit on a different level. And this isn't a disrespect to the guys I've just mentioned, but obviously before it was, The Rock and The Undertaker and stuff like that. And I think that was such a big moment that people loved, that they did again try to recapture some of that here. Then you got Cody Rhodes hitting, getting a 2 again. The steel steps get involved, and there's a spear. Another 2 count. Solo runs into the steps. There's 2 out of 3 crossroads. The third one can't be hit because Jacob Fatu gets involved, and he pulls Solo on top again for the 2. Eventually, Jacob dives through the announce table and Cody Rhodes himself, and it looks like he injures himself. And I'm not sure if that was legit. He was screaming, just saying, "Get on with it." Basically, go, do what you got to do. Hopefully, he's not injured, but we'll have to see how that goes in the next few days. Then you get another splash from Solo, another 2, and it just felt like, again, I mentioned earlier on, there was a lot of kickouts, there was a lot of finishes that didn't quite work. This match had a lot of it, to, I think, if I'm honest, the detriment of Solo, because this wasn't a main event of WrestleMania, and Solo isn't quite there yet. So for him to not be able to do it, I think wasn't a good look for him with all that help, if I'm honest. As much as I'm saying, look, Solo, and maybe this is why the perception of Solo isn't quite what we maybe thought it would be at this stage, because he can't get it done. But then when you've got the big bad Roman Reigns coming back, you need to make Solo look a little bit of a coward and beatable as well. But anyway, look, I've jumped ahead of myself. Let's focus on that. The big moment of the night. We did get the return of the true tribal chief, Roman Reigns. And this was absolutely amazing. Look, I was saying before the show, I didn't think he was coming back. I thought Jimmy Uso made more sense. We could build up to it. Although SummerSlam is the kind of place you want to bring someone like Roman back, I don't think the storyline needed it just yet. But boy, am I glad to see him. Either way. Now, let's break down what happens. So the music hits, and I will say the music was slightly different. It seemed slightly sped up, and it seemed more like the kind of live performance version at WrestleMania than the one they've been using, which I've got to be honest, at this moment in time, sitting here right now, was a little bit of a disappointment. It had the same kind of notes. It just feels like one of those examples where they redo a song. Maybe it's because he's going to be babyface now. But either way, it was still recognizable. It was still Roman Reigns. The graphics still came up, and people lost their mind. Now, I'm so happy for Roman, because this is what I think we've all been waiting for. Roman Reigns, as we know, kind of shoved down our throats for years, right? We all knew he had talent. We all knew he could be something special, but many of us felt it was not going the way it should be. Then eventually they turn him heel, and he turns into the cool bad guy, and people are cheering. People can't wait. This is at a time when people aren't even able to see shows live, and they can't wait to get there and see him again and be able to put their ones up and say, "I acknowledge the tribal chief." And then this storyline goes on and on as him as the champion, and they settle it in a fantastic way at WrestleMania. And at some point, he's turning babyface. And they've done it perfect, where it feels like we're going to get the old bloodline versus the new bloodline. But either way, we're at least getting the old tribal chief versus the new tribal chief. And I'm so excited just seeing him get that pop, because he's had massive cheers since he's been a heel. Don't get me wrong, because we're doing it out of respect. We should boo you. And even the boos, like, he got booed out of respect. That's when, we're all in on the act. We know what this is. But to get the cheer as a babyface, people lost their minds. We all wanted it and we got it. And again, it was just that kind of validation to me, really, of what Roman's done and the kind of character work they've managed to pull off, and the kind of switch up in kind of attitudes surrounding Roman Reigns as well. Now, I think a big part of that is when he announced his leukemia. He went away. There's a lot of kind of people, compassion there, thinking about the real life human being here and stuff like that. And I think that helped as well. And then when again he came back, that was fantastic. It was a moment I remember being tearful and stuff like that. And this is a guy I didn't always enjoy some of his work, but I always thought it was fantastic and had as a fantastic performer and had a lot of potential. But finally, when he turned heel, it was a time to just be like, man, look at him. Like, this is what he can really do. And now, naturally, that's what you do. You turn your big bad heel into a babyface eventually, and everybody just can't wait to cheer for him. And that's what we did, man. I think tonight was it was kind of like the crowning of Roman Reigns as the guy. And look, you could say, look, he's been that for a few years, but like, to do it as a babyface, when for years, again, we felt like we didn't want him as a babyface. We didn't want him shoved down our throats and stuff like that. It's what they never did with John Cena, let's be honest. And now we've got it with Roman Reigns. And man, I'm so excited to see where this is going to go. Look, in 6 months' time, are we going to go, it's one off now because he's not the cool bad guy? That's the danger when you turn a heel babyface sometimes. But man, there's so much they can do with this storyline. The old bloodline versus the new bloodline. The Rock could come back into it. There's a lot they can do, and I'm just really excited to see what is next. So guys, that is pretty much it for our instant reaction review of SummerSlam. I really hope you've enjoyed this stream. We've come straight on the air as it's finished, so apologies if I've rambled at any point. It is 4:30 a.m. here in the UK, and I'm a little bit tired. We did a 4-hour stream tonight before the show kicked off. From 8 p.m. we went live. If you weren't with us, we did a build-up show, and this is what we do on this channel. If you're brand new here, thanks for joining us. But essentially, on the night of a PLE, we get ourselves and you guys hyped up for that PLE, breaking down the card, the last-minute rumors and stuff like that. So a lot of the stuff we've mentioned here tonight, thankfully, is what we were excited about earlier on today as well. I did say at the last few moments of that stream, even if we got 2 or 3 of these things, it'd be amazing. And I went through all of the possible, changes and kind of big moments and surprises. And I honestly think we got all of them. Let me just quickly go through the card and just double check that fact, because the opportunity here was a turn from Finn Balor and a title change. We got both those things. The opportunity here was a turn from Balor or Dominik, and we got that. The opportunity here was a cash-in or a championship change in hands, and we got a title change in hands and a tease of a cash-in. The opportunity here was either a title change or Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, even The Rock coming back. We got Roman Reigns back, and it was crazy. The opportunity here was to crown LA Knight finally, and we got that. The opportunity here was to crown Bron Breakker and get him to the next level, and we got that. And the opportunity here was to have an incredible story being told between these 3 men, with Seth Rollins, of course, getting in the middle of it and making sure that we had something to look forward to going out of this match at the end of it as well. And we got that. Honestly, guys, this is one of the best PLEs in the modern era, in my opinion. I really, really did enjoy it. I hope you guys did as well. I hope you've enjoyed this stream. Let us know in the comments again, whether it's in these last few moments live or whether it is on demand. and you're watching at a later date, we appreciate you joining us. My name is Scott. We are the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. We've got content that I think you'd enjoy. We've had interviews in the past with the likes of Bayley. We've had great conversations with the likes of the big bad Finn Balor after what he did today, and the guy he cast, Mr. Damian Priest. We've got watch-alongs in this channel of classic SummerSlams such as 2002 and 1992. Heck, I've even tried on Seth Rollins' suit, so there's something for everyone on this channel. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Again, please drop your comments after this as well. I'd love to see what you thought of not only our show, but of course SummerSlam itself. And we're going to be back as soon as we can, covering WWE and the rest of the wrestling world in depth, as well as we always do on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. Please give us a like, please subscribe, please share, please comment, and all that good stuff. It doesn't take long, and we really do appreciate those efforts that you give us as well. We will be covering, as I say, Bash in Berlin later on this month. We'll try our best to get the most out of All In here in the UK, again at London's Wembley Arena as well. And in between that, we'll try to keep you up to date with our thoughts and opinions on what's going on in the wrestling world. But again, I've been Scott. This has been the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. It is 4:35 a.m. I need to get to bed, but I've had a privilege in being up tonight with you guys. So thank you so much for joining me, wherever it's been from 8 p.m. all the way to 4:30 in the morning. Thank you so much. It's been great. And man, what a SummerSlam.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.